respected faculty members, our MBA peers, and all the students of College of Engineering present here and also who have joined us on YouTube Live to the third episode of Deep Sea Talk series, which is the first flagship event started under COEP MBA program. Deep Sea Talk is where we deep dive into the sea of corporate and community to discover shells and pearls of experience and infinite exploration. Talking about COEP, our mission is to be a student-centric institute imbibing experiential, innovative, and lifelong learning skill, addressing societal problems. To strengthen national and international, industrial and institutional collaborations for symbiotic relations. Our vision is to be a value-based, globally recognized institution, ensuring academic excellence and fostering research, innovation, and entrepreneurial attitude. We are driven by strong core values of STEER, which stands for strength, truth, endurance, ethics, and reverence for all. We truly believe that the same will be portrayed by the first batch of MBA students as well. Now, our speaker for the day is an engineer, investor, strategist, mentor, and much more. He earned his bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Mumbai University and postgraduate diploma in management from the prestigious Institute of Management, Calcutta. He began his career with Tata Motors, made significant contributions to Maruti Suzuki for more than a decade. He has an extensive general management experience of over 40 years. He has served as the president and CEO of major businesses of General Electric in South Asia and as the managing director of Tyco Electronics in South Asia for over 11 years. After close to 3 decades in the industry, he quit his corporate career for an entrepreneurial innings in private equity. He is a co-founder, managing director, and CEO of Forum Synergies India Private Limited, which provides investors with best-in-class private equity model that manages risk of and generates superior returns. So without taking much of your time, I request Mr. Samir Inamdar sir to guide us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shubham. Thank you, Professor Chakrabarti, and also thank you to Dr. TANSEN Chaudhari, because of whom I'm here. Glad to be here and glad to be, have this opportunity to talk to the first batch of MBA students of one of the most prestigious institutions in the country. I believe COEP is the second oldest engineering college in Asia. And now that the MBA started, I'm sure it is going to add to the reputation and the credibility of COEP. So what I'm going to do today is, I have been given a topic, business strategic thinking, right? And however, I thought that I will take a view on it, which is a little bit different from what you may have imagined. And my take, I'm going to kind of broaden the topic a little bit and talk about quest for strategic success. And I'm going to talk about quest for strategic success in business, but also in your career and also in life itself, right? And when you dig deep, you'll find that there are a lot of overlaps in the drivers of success in each of these areas. So it's not as if what governs success in business is very different from what governs success in career and so on. So let's see how that works out. By the way, let me just pause here and say, am I audible well? And is everything okay? Can you guys hear me well?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
I can hear.
Great, thank you. I'm going to share my slides. And tell me if you can see. Yeah?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, great. Talking about quest for strategic success in just a minute. Okay, talking about quest for strategic success in business, in career, and in life. So,
This one's carrier.
there is some problem here, but I'm going to just give me a moment, okay?
Yes.
Okay. So everything starts small in life, right? Nothing is a success right in the beginning, right? Like the COEP MBA program, you just said that it is a startup, right? So everything starts small, and some of these things grow big. I remember way back in 1984 on a very hot summer day, I landed up at a company which I was supposed to join outside of Delhi, and this company hardly had a proper office, didn't have very rudimentary manufacturing facilities, and they sent me. I was joining as a fresh MBA graduate, so they sent me to a small 6 by 6 cubicle of a doctor in the nearby village to get my medical test done. Right, that village is called Gurgaon or Gurugram. At that time, it was just a very small village. Today, it is the global hub for IT and manufacturing. And the company that I was going to join, and did join eventually, is a company which was called Maruti Udyog, which today is called Maruti Suzuki, one of the largest car makers in the world today. Right. Similarly, I remember in 1995, I came to Bangalore to join another company in this little village where I actually had to travel on roads which looked more like lunar landscape. We didn't have a phone in the office. I used to do I used to go and talk to my boss in Tokyo from a local public call office and do conference calls from public call office, right? That place is today called Whitefield, which is a huge cluster of technology and manufacturing companies in Bangalore. And the company that I joined that time is today a business of 2,000 plus crores, employing, I think, 4,000 people. So everything starts small. And you don't realize when you are in the stage of life that you are in today that you have the potential of growing big, likes of the companies that I spoke of, you and your career as well. When I started my career, I had no clue that where I'm going to end up. And if somebody had told me at that time that I would be, here having built businesses for 2 Fortune 100 companies worth thousands of crores and having touched tens of thousands of families in their life, I would have not believed it. In fact, you would be very surprised to know that just coming out of college in engineering, some of us friends had a bet. Okay, this is 1979. Okay, and we were so sure that there is no chance of any of us owning a car for the next 10 years. So we had a bet saying that we are not going to own a car. If anybody owns a car in 10 years, he's going to give 100 rupees to everybody else. So, I'm just trying to say that, sometimes you think, you cannot think big, but everything starts small and everything goes big. So what are the ingredients of this strategic success? And like I said before, surprisingly, they're very similar for businesses, companies, institutions, careers. Some of them, there's a large overlap between them. So that's really what I'm wanting to explore over the next few minutes, maybe 40 minutes or so, if that's fine. If it's okay with you, I mean, if there's a problem, please stop and ask or tell me, right? In any case, I think some slot has been provided at the end for question and answer, so we'll take that. So what are the drivers for business? I want to put them as follows. This is what I want to say. Learn, high quest, right? This is what I want to say are the drivers. So what are they? Let's look at it. So when you say learn, first one is a learning attitude. Given given how things are changing today, everything is changing so fast. Technology is changing, not just technology, but society is changing, cultures are changing, environment is changing, businesses are changing, the way you want to do business is changing. Everything is changing very fast. So what is important is just not to know stuff, right? Which they teach you at in the management school or in engineering, but also to learn to learn, to learn to learn. Learning attitude is very, very important. I remember in late 80s, for the first time, I saw an engineering drawing coming out of a fax machine sent by a supplier who was in Chennai and I was in Gurgaon. It was such a fascinating experience. I had never imagined anything like that, right? Today, we are talking about gigabits of data going across in just a few minutes. Early in 1991, I think we in Maruti we launched a vehicle called Zen. So I'm going to talk about a lot of my experiences to explain some of these points. Okay, so we launched a vehicle called Zen, the original Zen, and each car has 7-8 thousand part numbers, and each part number is sourced from two, if not three or four suppliers. So you can imagine the complication in monitoring the localization plans. So this time we had got one desktop in our department, and I said, okay, let me try to figure out how I can use the desktop to start monitoring these things. And in those days, there was a software called Foxtrot, and I used that with dot matrix printers, right? And everybody said, hey, that's not your job. You're not supposed to, it's typist job. In those days, it was a typist job to operate the computers. So I said, let me learn this new technology. So the building a learning organization, especially in this time of rapid change, is extremely important, and that is how you have to be able to learn to learn. The organization itself has to be able to learn to learn. The next is entrepreneurial mindset. There's a lot of entrepreneurship today in India as well as in the world, which is really good. Also, in companies, in GE we used to call it intrapreneurship. Intrapreneurship, right? Internal intrapreneurship. Basically, it is to do with being dedicated to achieving what you need to achieve and having the ability to take risks. I remember in Tyco Electronics, in one of our sales engineers, we had a situation where one customer has not paid, and this guy actually waded through flood waters, went there and collected the money and came back. And I asked him, what was the necessity of putting your life on line and wading through floods? He said, but I had given a commitment to our CFO that I will make this collection. That's the kind of commitment to targets and commitment to being true to commitment. That is what entrepreneurial mindset is about. Risk taking ability is the other thing. It's very important that organizations build systems which will allow employees to take risks. Reward systems should be able to. Sorry, is there something? Hello, sorry, I'm getting some feedback. Is that? Can I go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
the reward system should be able to not only celebrate the behavior of other things, but also should be able to protect people who have taken genuine risks and allow them therefore to take risks. So I think everybody else needs to mute.
Please mute. There is some song we can hear. Please mute everybody else. Okay, host Harshal or Shubham, I think you can mute everybody and then unmute only sir, Inamdar sir. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Thanks. I think, singing abilities are important, but I don't know whether they're important for strategic success in business. I was just going to share one example of where in my career, we took a very big risk with an entrepreneurial mindset. We were suppliers in the consumer electronics market, and we were supplying to Sony. Unfortunately, we didn't really have the right kind of products because my company had products for higher end markets like Japan. But in those days, I'm talking about mid-90s, Sony was making very low end consumer electronic products, and we didn't have the parts which would go into those products. So we actually botched it up. And after trying our hardest, I finally took a call and said that, okay, we're going to withdraw from this business. So we actually went to Sony, and in typical Japanese style, we bowed down and I apologized and told them, sorry, we cannot do it. We'll withdraw from the business. That was a big, big risk we took because we actually came out of one of the largest businesses, that business segments for our business. But it paid off because eventually we decided that we should tie up with somebody who has the right kind of products. And we made a joint venture with a Korean company and came back in the business and grew that business. It became the third largest business segment for us. If we had not taken that risk and if we had somehow tried to continue to play in that segment, we probably would have lost out completely. So ability to take risks and entrepreneurial mindset is again something which is very, very important. The next one is agility, flexibility to change. We already talked about rapid change in technology. You already know, I'm sure you know about Kodak cameras, right? Kodak cameras failed to adapt to change in technology and they got wiped out. Yesterday, there is this Times Now, some kind of a summit going on Nasib Taleb. I hope you guys have heard of Nasib Taleb. He was on this thing. He was this thing, and he lives in New York. He said when the COVID lockdown happened in New York, one day he thought that maybe a lot of these restaurants that he used to frequent, they must be going through a very bad time. So let me see how I can help them. So he rang up one of these restaurants, and the restaurant owner told him, "What bad time? I'm having the best time in my life." Because he had completely switched his model to deliveries and he was making more money because delivering food instead of serving people who sit in your restaurant, A, is more productive. You can do much more because generally the restaurant capacity is limited by the number of tables you have. And B, you don't need to spend any money on the dining part of you only need to spend money. So your costs come down. You only need to spend money in the kitchen. So the ability to be flexible, to be agile, to adapt to change is something which is very, very important. We ourselves had, one of the huge changes which is coming in near future is going to be the automotive industry facing the EV onslaught, electric vehicle onslaught, and how the automotive industry is going to respond to this change is really going to test the ability and flexibility of the automotive industry. The next is relationships. Relationships are very important, especially in India, especially in Asia. A lot of people say that in West, relationship is not as important, but I don't believe that. Relationships are important in business everywhere. It's important to build relationships. It's important to network. One of my friends, he is a great networker. He builds great relationships. And he always says that what it helps you with is only to open doors. It's not going to give you business, but it is going to open door for you to be able to talk to the right person. After that, of course, you have to sell what you have. You have to win business on merit and you have to sell the value that you bring to the table. But many times, if you don't have the relationship, it doesn't even open the door for you, right? And also in relationships, the attitude has to be of what I can contribute to others rather than what I can get from others. Very often we get trapped into this attitude in building relationship that, hey, this person is very important. Let me build relationships so that I can win business from him. I can get something from him. Instead, the attitude should be the other way around, and then your win will happen automatically. But if you go in with the attitude, what I can extract from the person, that's going to be much more difficult. We had, again, like I said, I keep going back to stories from my own experience, and some of them,
is being recorded.
Some of them, taught me some of these things. So let me tell you again another story. So we were in Tyco Electronics. We were in automotive in a large way. And one day, there is a big supplier of Mercedes for wiring harness. In those days, Mercedes had come in India and they had started manufacturing, and they had asked this supplier to come in and start manufacturing in India. So this supplier, German supplier, large company. The CEO of this company had come to India. He had signed up a MOU for setting up a joint venture with another company in Delhi. And then he came to visit us because we could be suppliers to this joint venture, right? And, I really hit it off very well with him along with my head of automotive. And both of us really established a great relationship with this guy, who was the COO of the number one supplier to Mercedes-Benz. And eventually, they broke the MOU with the other company and signed up a joint venture with us in Tyco Electronics. And we became the single source supplier for harnesses for all C-class Mercedes-Benz produced anywhere in the world. Incidentally, in a factory out of Pune. So it was purely because of the relationship that I could build with this person. So relationships is another thing which is very important. The other thing I want to say is no cynicism. And what I mean by cynicism is many times we tend to take the attitude, ये तो होगा ही नहीं, ये तो हो ही नहीं सकता. This is simply impossible. This will never happen. This kind of a cynical attitude is simply a no-no in business, because when you're competing against huge entrenched competition, a cynical attitude is just a negative spiral which will not allow you to get anywhere. I talked about automotive, we had a very, very strong competition in India from a very large company, which today, and I can name it also, it was Motherson Sumi, which is today a very, very large company. I think it's close to a $10 billion corporation today worldwide. At that time, also, they were very, very strong in the country. And we could have just said, well, we can't do anything and we can't do much of automotive business here. But what we did was we changed the strategy. And instead of being suppliers to Motherson Sumi, because Motherson Sumi themselves were also making connectors, which was our product, we said, okay, let us get into wiring harness, which was Motherson Sumi's product line. And we actually started competing with Motherson Sumi on their strength, on their strong pitch. And it's a long story, but eventually we established a very, very strong business. And what I talked about, a joint venture for Mercedes-Benz, also came very, very helpful. But if we had taken an attitude that, well, nothing can happen because it's very difficult in automotive business in India, we would have got nowhere. And today, automotive business in India for that company, I think, is close to 1,000 crores. So no cynicism. That's the other thing. Let's move on. High Quest. What is H? Very simple. H is hard work. Right? I come from GE. Dr. TANSEN Chaudhari comes from GE, and he will know Thomas Alva Edison. He famously said that success is 90% perspiration and 10% inspiration. Thomas Alva Edison, you probably know, invented the light bulb, right? And he failed 1,000 times, 1,000 plus times in his attempt to make the light bulb. What he said was, though, that I didn't fail 1,000 times, I just discovered 1,000 ways in which a light bulb cannot operate. So, any person who is successful, you might think, it's so great, but we don't see the hard work behind that success. I want to share one story which I recently heard about hard work. A very good friend of mine, I'll not name him or his company, he started his career and he was a nobody. It was in those days the word startup was not discovered. Okay, so he started his career and he'd set up a new business and he would go to this customer, a potential customer, every day almost for a long time and couldn't win any business from this customer. One day in their office, he was in a lift, and in that lift, there was another guy wearing a suit and a tie, and there was a third guy. And this guy in suit and tie started talking to this third guy in Bengali. It turned out that the third guy was his driver. Now, my friend had spent some time in Calcutta, so he had a smattering of Bengali. So he just, asked this guy in the suit in Bengali that, oh, nice, I can also talk Bengali. Who are you? So he said, I am the managing director of this company, right? And they just got talking, and he asked him to come over and meet him. Cut a long story short, that was a breakthrough for his business. Now, why did it happen? One can say it is luck. But if he was not working hard, he wouldn't have been in that lift. If he was not visiting this company every day for 3 months, he wouldn't have been in that lift and luck wouldn't have come to him. So luck comes to you when you do hard work. Hard work is a must and it's also important for companies to value people. See, there are 3 levels of operations of a company. One is a strategic layer. So if you have senior management is operating or should be operating, many times they don't, but should be operating at a strategic layer. The second one is a tactical layer. So, for example, a sales engineer has to go visit the customer, get the order, and so on. That's a tactical layer. Third one is an operational layer, which is, somebody is preparing an invoice, somebody is cutting a challan, and so on and so forth. It's very easy for companies to get carried away and focus only on the strategic layer and forget about the lower ones. But the lower layers of people in the organization also work very hard. And it is important that the company recognizes those people and sets up rewards mechanisms for those people as well, because hard work comes from there. And without them, success is not going to happen, right? That's H. What is I? Very, very, very important. Integrity and honesty. I think a number of things in the recent years have taught us how important it is to have a very clean way of working. In GE, TANSEN would remember that we had a saying that one strike and you're out. This is a phraseology from baseball. Basically, what it means is if you do something wrong once and that's it, you're not going to get a second chance. You'll be thrown out. Tansen, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, in fact, I think integrity is the thing where you are stopping on a signal when traffic police is not there.
Absolutely,
So,
very good example. Very good
in
example.
fact, Samir sir gave me an opportunity to be the ombudsperson of the country for our G business, and there I have learned and imbibed many things where we say that, like say, suppose we get married and we have to do thief once and then from tomorrow onwards he won't do any thief. That is not allowed. So integrity is something which you have to really walk every instant, and once integrity is compromised, it will never come back to its original shape in life, rather.
And it's so tempting to take shortcuts, but shortcuts will always catch up with you, and compromise will always limit your options. A lot of times we tend to think, oh, this is theory. It doesn't happen in practice. Everybody is corrupt. It is without that you cannot be successful. Look what has happened in the last few years. Chanda Kochar, Rajat Gupta, Rana Kapoor. Then this guy, what's his name? The Kingfisher guy, Vijay Mallya, right? What have they done? Just one or in some cases actually more than one. But instances of wrongdoing have not only ruined them, but hugely affected their companies. In fact, in some cases, the companies have been ruined. Kingfisher Airlines, Jet Airways, Yes Bank. Fortunately, Yes Bank is back again. But I cannot emphasize more the and why do we need to emphasize integrity more? Because the environment is such that all of you young corporate executives, when you come into market or you set up your startups, it will be very tempting for you to cut corner and make compromises. The environment is such that it is all the more important for us to emphasize this. TANSEN gave a very good example of stopping at a red light when there is no one looking, right? Of course, now you have the cameras looking at you, even if there is no policeman. But the fact is that that is really integrity. It is not for showing others, it is for yourself. And unless that is done, you will, you could have success, but in one moment, you will lose all success. Don't take that chance. Never. Very, very important. What's Q? Questioning attitude. Yeah. So, even in your MBA classes, it's very important to have this attitude of questioning everything, not out of disrespect, with full respect, but from the point of view of wanting to understand deeper, wanting to understand better. Questioning, a sense of limited doubt is always important to learn more and understand deeper. More story from my experience. We had a program transfer from our affiliate company in Mexico. This was fiber optic patch cords, and we started doing it here. And we realized that there were ways to improve both the efficiency and reduce the rejections. So we started this whole process of why not. And mind you, this was a regular running line with the entire process and process controls being set up from Mexico. So all we had to do was just roll it out and just follow that process. But we didn't stop there. We said, okay, let's start questioning why this process, why this check, why not this, why not that. And again, to cut a long story short, at the end of, I think it took us about 3 or 4 months. At the end of 3 or 4 months, we had a manufacturing line with double the efficiency and 1/4 the rejections of Mexico, right? And this is just from a questioning attitude and a very logical, rational way of thinking. So what to be remembered is questioning does not mean that you can be disrespectful. Questioning is only for your own learning and not to show others down. As long as you maintain that, that stance, that's it really going to help you. It really goes towards the success of the business. What's you? Understanding concepts. So I spoke about a deeper understanding, right? A lot of times we stop at surface level understanding. Now today there is a lot of big data, there is a lot of analytics, and you get results, you get indications from that big data analytics, right? But unless you know your business very, very well, you cannot use those indications, you cannot use the output of that analytics to gain insights to your business. If you don't know the business well, you cannot use the analytics that is available now through technology. So understanding, a deep understanding of business, and in class, deep understanding of concepts and not just learning by rote is very important. Derive insights is very important. What's equanimity? What's equanimity? Calmness, unflustered attitude, ability to handle crisis, right? So many of you, I'm sure, are cricket fans. It's the difference between Rahane and Kohli. You understand what I mean? You know, again, going back to my stories. So we in GE, this is in GE, we had a big project going with Cognizant in Chennai. Cognizant was coming up with this big, which is a big office in Chennai, and we were doing some work for that office, right? And we had some problems. We were running behind schedule. So I went there and I went there to meet this guy who was in charge from Cognizant side for that project site. And I honestly, I don't think I have had a worse customer meeting in my whole career. This guy was so angry and he was so abrasive and he was so abusive. He was really, really bad. So for the first like 3 minutes, I tried to, say something, tried to calm him down. And then I decided, listen, I'm not going to react at all. And I just kept quiet. I just kept calm in the face of his assault. After about 15 or 20 minutes of talking non-stop, he cooled down. And then we started talking. If I had reacted, then it would have escalated to any other level, which wouldn't have been good for us. After all, we were the suppliers, right? Similarly, in a very different situation, I had another experience where I had just in Tyco Electronics, I had joined as a director, and then the chairman and managing director in India was an American. And within about a year of my joining, I took over as the chairman and managing director. But there were others who also who also thought that they deserved it more. And more importantly, one of the Americans, who was also my peer before I took over as CMD, he thought that he was the automatic choice simply because he was an American. And in fact, everybody else in the organization also thought the same. So when my elevation was announced, next day, he comes to my office and he was livid. He was really angry. And he accused me of wrongdoing. He accused me of playing political games and so on and so forth. And I just said, okay, Peter, all yours. You keep talking. I'm listening. And I just kept quiet. I think sometimes in business, sometimes in life, sometimes in career, it is very important to realize when to keep quiet and just take it. Because sometimes if you don't keep quiet, you're going to escalate the situation and it's not going to be good for you, right? So economic. Self-belief. I think it's very obvious. Confidence, self-belief, believing in oneself, and therefore thinking big, taking big shots, being aggressive without being abrasive, being aggressive without being abrasive, right? These are things which are very important. Self-belief is very important because that's, I read a quote somewhere. It says, challenge your limits, but don't limit your challenges. Challenge your limits, but don't limit your challenges. I think the self-confidence, self-belief will allow you to, take big strides in business, in career. It's very important to know yourself and to be very confident in your own abilities. And the last, of course, I'm not going to talk too much about it. It's teamwork. I think everybody talks about it. Teamwork is extremely important. And by the way, teamwork is important even in startups. Even when you're the boss, you may be the boss. It's even more important when you're the boss because if you generate a feeling of belongingness, that's when people give their best, and that comes when you exhibit teamwork. So those are the let me say secret sauce, not so secret anyway, but the drivers of strategic success in business. I want to make a couple of last points and then I will stop, right? And this is about, in Indian DNA, we think that when we are humble, can we be self-confident? If we want to be polite, do we lose self-esteem? If we want to be courteous, are we not self-assured? Are these mutually exclusive? Are these facets of nature or characteristics, your nature, are they mutually exclusive? Are they contradictory? You see, let me give you a very day-to-day example, right? If you have a driver or if you have a maid at home, right, they will be submissive. They will lose their self-confidence. They will lose their self-esteem in order to show that they are respecting you. I think it's not mutually exclusive. You can be humble, you can be polite, you can be courteous without losing your self-confidence, without losing your self-esteem, without losing your self-assuredness. And it's very important to make this balance. At the same time, in business, it is also very important that if you are self-confident, if you are high self-esteem, or whether it is whether you are an individual or you as a brand or you as a corporation, it is very important that should not lead to arrogance. So in India, we have this. I have noticed it so often at various levels. I talked about a driver, but it happens. Let's say you go to a restaurant with a waiter, or in a company with juniors against seniors. It happens all the time. Either we are very humble and submissive, and we lose our self-esteem. But if we have a self-esteem and self-confidence, then we are arrogant. I think these are the three things which we have to balance completely. We should be self-confident, we should have self-esteem, but at the same time, we should be humble, we should be polite, but at the same time, we should not be arrogant. And this goes not just for individuals, but also for brands. It is very important. A character of a brand. How do you build the nature of a brand? How does it come across to your customers? Whether you're in B2B business or you're in B2C business, doesn't matter. A brand signifies or represents the nature of your business. It's very important that brand should balance these three things. Brand should be humble, polite, courteous, should be self-confident, have a lot of self-esteem and self-assurance, but should never be arrogant. And same with corporations. So that's, I wanted to make this point because I see this too often that companies, brands, individuals, they're simply not able to get this equation right. Think about it. It's very important to get it right to achieve success. Okay. My last slide. And before going there, I just want to say, I want to share with you a Sanskrit shlok. And it is not religious. We many times think Sanskrit means religion. It's not. Sanskrit is a language. So like Hindi, like Marathi, like Gujarati, like English, Sanskrit is another language. And this is a shlok in Sanskrit. It's got nothing to do with religion. Okay. But it has got a lot to do with strategic success in business. So I wanted to share it with you. I'll read it out first. It says, Vidya dadati vinayam vinayatyati patratam patratva dhanam apnoti dhanar dharmam tatah sukha. This is a beautiful shlok which gives you a key to success at the individual level, but it can also be interpreted to talk about the success, strategic success of a business. It gives you a flow chart. What is a flow chart? Flow chart is that knowledge, vidya, leads to not capability directly. It first must lead to humility. And remember what I just said earlier on the earlier slide. Vidya, knowledge first should lead to humility. Then it leads to capability. That capability will give you wealth or will give you, let's say revenue in business context. That you should understand, you should gain there with that the understanding of dharma. In dharma, in Sanskrit does not mean religion. It means duty or correctness or righteousness. You have to have the understanding of what is your duty, what is the correct thing for you to do, and what is the righteous thing for you to do. And after that, and only after that, will you gain happiness or success, whether business or in your individual life, right? So I thought this is a very, very nicely captured flow chart. What is to be noted here is knowledge does not directly give you capability. Just because you're in an MBA school, which is one of the, which is part of one of the biggest institutions in the country, does not immediately give you capability. You have to be humble to be able to absorb that knowledge, and then only will you get capability. If you gain wealth, it does not directly give you happiness unless you understand the duty that you have to do, right? So I thought I will leave you with this thought, and I have, I think, taken exactly the amount of time that I was given, and I will stop here and turn it over to you for questions or comments or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of all the listeners and enthusiasts, we would like to thank Sir for his advices and thoughts. We believe they will help in guiding us towards our future endeavors and shape our future.